It's so funny what's happening with Diddy because this was inevitable.
Is it really a conspiracy if the same person keeps benefiting off the same kind of tragedy over and over?
Picture this: a world of glittering red carpets, private jets, and sprawling mansions. A world where fame and fortune promise an escape from the ordinary, but beneath the surface of this glitzy facade lies a tangled web of secrets so dark, so twisted, that even Hollywood's brightest stars are desperate to keep them hidden. And right in the eye of this storm is Ally Carter, a name that has become synonymous with chaos, revelations, and danger. Once a quiet voice on the margins, her words now echo like a sledgehammer through the corridors of power, rattling the entertainment industry to its core. But what is it about Ally's story that has sent shockwaves across social media and sparked endless debates? Buckle up, because this is no ordinary scandal.
I came here today just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll start to see that.
Ally Carter didn't just stumble into the spotlight. She was thrust into it after daring to speak out about what she claims to have witnessed behind the velvet ropes of Hollywood's most exclusive parties. And these weren't just any parties. These were gatherings of the elite, where luxury collided with depravity, and the world's biggest names allegedly let their masks slip. Ally's accounts have been described as horrifying, unbelievable, and yet disturbingly detailed. She didn't just name names. She painted pictures, raw, vivid, and impossible to ignore. And the names she dropped, they're not just celebrities, they're icons. People who have built empires on the foundation of public adoration and trust. People who now find themselves caught in a whirlwind of accusations that threaten to tear their carefully curated images apart. Take Sean Diddy Combs, for instance, a man whose name has been etched into the annals of music history as a mogul, a tastemaker, a trailblazer. But according to Ally, there's another side to him, a side the world wasn't supposed to see. Her claims have sparked a firestorm of speculation, with lawsuits piling up like dominoes and allegations that stretch back decades. From troubling personal encounters to accusations that implicate an entire network of enablers, the picture being painted is one of excess gone unchecked. And Diddy isn't the only one feeling the heat. Ally's story has drawn connections to other industry heavyweights, weaving a narrative that feels almost too sinister to be true. Yet the more you dig, the harder it becomes to dismiss her as just another attention seeker.
In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and at the hands of Diddy.
Remember when Jaguar Wright made waves with her explosive interviews, calling out everyone from the Roots to Jay-Z? People dismissed her at first too. But now, with Ally's claims surfacing and aligning with some of Jaguar's past warnings, the dots are starting to connect in ways that are impossible to ignore. Jaguar has been one of Ally's most vocal supporters, describing her as a truth teller who has risked everything to pull back the curtain on an industry that thrives on secrecy. And the risks? They're not just theoretical. Ally has spoken about being followed, harassed, and even having her home invaded by armed men. The fear in her voice during her live streams is palpable. This is a woman who believes she's being hunted for what she knows.
Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff.
And what exactly does she know? Well, that's where things get even murkier. Ally has accused some of the industry's biggest players of participating in acts so disturbing that they sound like something out of a dystopian thriller. She's described scenes of manipulation, exploitation, and rituals that defy comprehension. And while some have dismissed her claims as the ramblings of a troubled mind, others are starting to wonder if there's more to her story than meets the eye. After all, it wouldn't be the first time Hollywood has been rocked by revelations that seemed too shocking to be true, until they weren't.
A U.S. judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male workers across state lines to take part in recorded sexual performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence.
But let's pause for a moment and consider the stakes. If what Ally is saying is even partially true, the implications are staggering. We're not just talking about individual acts of misconduct. We're talking about a systemic problem that reaches into the highest echelons of power. And the more Ally talks, the more it seems like she's just scratching the surface. Her claims about Diddy alone have spurred renewed interest in past allegations against him, as well as new lawsuits that have dragged other celebrities into the fray. Names like Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and even Justin Bieber have been mentioned in connection with events or behaviors that raise uncomfortable questions. And while these figures have largely remained silent, their silence is starting to speak volumes. One of the most chilling aspects of Ally's story is how it intersects with other scandals that have plagued the industry in recent years. From the Me Too, movement to the ongoing revelations about abuse and exploitation in the music world, it's clear that Hollywood's golden veneer has been cracking for some time. Ali's testimony feels like a sledgehammer to those cracks, threatening to bring the whole facade crashing down. And it's not just the allegations themselves that are shocking. It's the lengths to which some appear to have gone to silence her. The armed raid on her home, the threats to her family, the constant online harassment. It all paints a picture of a woman under siege.
And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on suicide watch.
Yet, Ali remains defiant, even as she's forced to move from state to state, even as she's labeled a liar by some and a hero by others. She continues to speak out. Her live streams are equal parts confessional and call to action, urging her followers to wake up to the realities she claims to have endured. She doesn't just want justice for herself. She wants to shine a light on what she describes as a culture of complicity that allows the powerful to prey on the vulnerable. And while her critics accuse her of being melodramatic or unhinged, her supporters see her as a modern-day David taking on a Goliath that has been untouchable for far too long.
Now, to the latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs. This one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators. But how exactly did we get here?
The industry, of course, has its own way of dealing with whistleblowers. Ali isn't the first person to come forward with damning allegations, and she likely won't be the last. But what makes her story different is the sheer scope of her claims and the number of people she's implicating. This isn't just one person alleging misconduct against another. This is a sprawling narrative that ties together some of the biggest names in entertainment. And while it's easy to dismiss her as a conspiracy theorist or a fame seeker, the sheer number of coincidences and overlapping accounts is starting to feel less like a coincidence and more like a pattern. And that brings us to the question everyone is asking: why now? Why is Ali speaking out now, after years of silence? Some say it's because she finally feels safe enough to tell her story. Others believe it's because the walls are closing in, and she knows she has nothing left to lose. Either way, the timing couldn't be more critical. With Diddy already facing multiple lawsuits and a looming trial that could redefine his legacy, Ali's words have the power to tip the scales. And if her claims are substantiated, even partially, they could trigger a domino effect that brings down more than just one man.
Public realm, this is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a jail cell right now, I think it really underscores the magnitude of what he's facing and the weight of the federal government.
What's undeniable is that the entertainment industry is holding its breath. Ali Carter has become a lightning rod for a conversation that many would rather avoid, a living reminder that the truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deeply it's buried. And as her story continues to unfold, one thing is clear: this is far from over. The question isn't whether more revelations will come to light. It's how much more the industry can take before it's forced to reckon with its own demons. And just when you think the story couldn't get darker, more tangled, or more explosive, another layer reveals itself, one that drags even more powerful players into the fold, tightening the grip of suspicion around Hollywood's untouchables. Ali Carter's accusations aren't just isolated claims. They feel like puzzle pieces in a sprawling, interconnected conspiracy that exposes the sinister underbelly of the entertainment industry. It's not just about what's being said, it's about who's staying silent and why.
It's a question of that, but when you read through the indictment, it's pretty clear who could be indicted as a co-conspirator. Right now, there are people in the indictment who would be considered unnamed co-conspirators, but clearly have played a role in this conspiracy. And I think prosecutors have some big leverage on them because they're hoping that they testify against Diddy as prosecution witnesses.
Take, for instance, the eerie connections between Ali's allegations and the long-whispered rumors surrounding power players who've built their careers on the backs of loyalty and secrecy. Jay-Z, a name synonymous with success and resilience, has been dragged into the periphery of this chaos, not through direct accusations, but through a deafening silence that has sparked its own wave of speculation. This is a man who's built an empire on being untouchable, a figure who's weathered everything from industry feuds to the fallout of his private life going public. And yet, when Diddy's name imploded under the weight of these allegations, Jay-Z, once a close ally, didn't so much as lift a finger to defend him. Is it self-preservation? Guilt by association? Guilt by association? Or is there something even more sinister brewing beneath the surface?
includes co-defendants, but there's also strategic reasons for the prosecutors to want him to have co-defendants, because right now he hasn't waived his right to a speedy trial, which would force prosecutors to take him to trial pretty quick, which they actually might not be ready to do. But if they supersede him and have co-defendants with him, it makes it a lot easier to pursue a trial continuance without him waiving his speedy trial right.
It's impossible to ignore the parallels. For years, people have pointed to Hollywood as a breeding ground for unchecked behavior, where wealth and influence shield the guilty and discredit the brave. Allie's claims about underground networks, the manipulation of power, and the complicity of those who turn a blind eye don't just feel plausible, they feel inevitable. And when you start connecting the dots, it becomes clear that the culture of secrecy doesn't just protect individuals. It protects an entire system, a system that thrives on silence, on intimidation, and on the unspoken rule that the higher you climb, the less you can afford to speak out. And then there's Justin Bieber, another name dragged into this swirling vortex of chaos. The pop star, who once called Diddy a mentor, now finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place. His recent public appearances, hollow-eyed, visibly strained, have only fueled speculation that the weight of these revelations is hitting closer to home than he'd like to admit. People are questioning whether his past association with Diddy was as innocent as it seemed, or if there are darker memories he's been trying to bury. And while Bieber has yet to comment publicly, his actions speak volumes. The sudden unfollowing spree, the abrupt attempts to distance himself. These are not the moves of someone who feels unaffected. They're the moves of someone who knows the tide is turning and wants out before it's too late. But distancing himself isn't as simple as hitting the unfollow button. Diddy's influence on Bieber's early career is undeniable, and the resurfacing of old interviews and footage has only added fuel to the fire. One clip in particular has gone viral, a moment where Diddy describes spending time with a young Bieber in cryptic, almost boastful terms. What we did, we can't even talk about, Diddy says with a smirk, a statement that now feels more like a loaded confession than a flippant remark. It's moments like this that are forcing fans and critics alike to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about these relationships. Was Bieber just another pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing? And if so, how many others were caught in the same web?
But yeah, first time I smoked, I don't suggest this, but I was 13. Yeah, 12 or 13.
The ripple effect doesn't stop there. As more names surface and more connections are drawn, the whispers have turned into a roar. Whistleblowers, former employees, even industry insiders who once pledged allegiance to the powerful are now starting to speak out. And what they're describing isn't just a series of isolated incidents. It's a culture where exploitation isn't just tolerated, it's normalized. Where the most vulnerable are groomed, manipulated, and discarded while the perpetrators are celebrated on magazine covers and award show stages. It's a culture that thrives on the belief that money and influence can buy silence. And for the most part, it has. Until now. And let's not forget the role of the media in all of this. For years, entertainment outlets have been complicit in protecting the reputations of these larger-than-life figures. Reporters connected to high-profile groups have confessed privately that they faced pressure to suppress reports or turn serious accusations into flattering articles. Tabloids have turned a blind eye to whispers of misconduct, focusing instead on red carpet looks and relationship gossip. It's only now, with the rise of independent platforms and social media, that the narrative is beginning to shift. Platforms that once thrived on celebrity worship are now being forced to reckon with the darker truths they've ignored for decades. But how deep does that complicity go? Were these editorial decisions merely about preserving access to a list of stars, or did some outlets knowingly aid in covering up the worst of Hollywood secrets?
Look at Diddy, for instance. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at him. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at. He has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much. But what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on right now.
Even more disturbing are the alleged ties between industry gatekeepers and law enforcement. Whistleblowers have hinted at a revolving door of influence, with certain figures using their power to not only silence victims, but also to discredit them entirely. Reports of private investigators being hired to dig up dirt on accusers, police reports mysteriously disappearing, and witnesses being pressured into recanting their stories have surfaced repeatedly over the years. These aren't isolated incidents. They paint a picture of an entire ecosystem designed to protect the powerful at any cost. Allie Carter's story may be one of the most visible, but it's becoming increasingly clear that she's not alone in her experiences. And then there's the bigger question of accountability. Even if these allegations lead to convictions, what happens to the enablers, The managers, publicists, assistants, and lawyers who kept the machine running, will they face consequences, or will they quietly pivot to new clients and continue business as usual? History shows us that the fall of one powerful figure rarely leads to systemic change. But this time feels different. This time feels different. The voices are louder, the receipts are piling up, and the world is watching. For the first time, the invincibility of Hollywood's elite is being called into question, and the spotlight is exposing cracks in a foundation that were once invisible to the public eye.
Same thing for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the interesting thing about the Epstein and the theory about Epstein is we know he filmed people for sure on that island. He has a lot of movies, a lot of films of people that are very, very powerful political figures, and entertainers, business people. So, do you really believe that Jeffrey Epstein himself? And of course not. Of course not. Yeah.
Even as Ally Carter remains in hiding, her words have sparked a reckoning that feels impossible to contain. Social media has become the battleground for this unfolding war, with hashtags, viral videos, and endless threads dissecting every detail of her claims. And while some dismiss her as a liar or a provocateur, others see her as the catalyst for a long overdue reckoning. The evidence may be circumstantial, the allegations unproven, but the sheer volume of stories coming to light is impossible to ignore. It's as though Ally's bravery has opened a floodgate, and now the truth is spilling out faster than anyone can control.
Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart, super business. He's very successful.
And yet, the industry's response has been predictably calculated. Statements of denial, legal threats, and vague promises to investigate have become the standard playbook. But what's striking is how many of the accused have chosen to remain silent altogether. Diddy, who once seemed untouchable, now sits in a prison cell awaiting trial, a reminder that even the most powerful can fall. But what about the others? What about the others? What about the names that Ally hasn't spoken yet but has hinted at knowing? What about the figures who continue to walk red carpets and sign deals, their reputations seemingly intact despite the storm brewing around them?
I don't know how much. I don't like to say things that I know unless I see it. That there's a little difference, but was it discussed? Was there descriptions from people I know that were at those? Yes, but here's another thing. So how many of these big entertainment parties and over the years and everything, with as successful as you are, have you been around? Does anyone ever come up to you at a certain hour and say, okay, it's time to go? At those parties, they did. At a certain time.
It's this tension, this sense that there's so much more to the story that keeps the world watching. Every day, new details emerge, each one more shocking than the last. And yet, for all the chaos and uncertainty, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. This is just the beginning. Ally Carter's story isn't just a scandal, it's a reckoning. It's a spotlight on an industry that has long operated in the shadows, a reminder that no amount of wealth or power can keep the truth buried forever. And now, the question isn't whether more dominoes will fall, it's how many. How deep does this go? Who else is complicit? And perhaps the most chilling question of all, what happens when the next Ally Carter steps forward? Let us know what you think down below, and we'll see you in the next one.